Hey everyone, haven't made a video for a while, so I figured I'd make a video about the spooky books I've been reading this month because it is October, of course. Last year we did some spooky book videos, and we have some different books this year. Actually, I read one of the ones that my lovely co-host read last year, and I enjoyed it. So I'm just going to go over some of the books that I've been reading this month and what I'm going to read. I'm probably going to go a little over October and read one last book. The first book that I'm reading this month, which I really enjoyed, which is quite famous, is Horace Walpole's The Castle of Otranto, which of course is the seminal Gothic horror novel, and I enjoyed it. The thing I liked about this Penguin edition was that it came with a bunch of supplementary literature, especially literary reviews that were contemporaneous with Walpole, and it's interesting to read the opinions of people at the time, which are sort of echo some opinions that I had about the novel. This was published, I believe, in 1764, and it's a little, I guess, a little gaudy at parts, a little heavy-handed, but for the most part, it's a pretty decent book, and I would definitely recommend it. Not a very long read, but sort of interesting. A lot of people credit this book with starting Gothic fiction, but there was actually kind of a delay between when this came out and became popular and when Gothic fiction really kicked off, and a period of about 20 or 30 years, if not longer, because if you look at the kind of gulf between when Shelley's Frankenstein came out, which is sort of the other staple of Gothic fiction, and when this came out, there was quite a gulf of time between those two. The second book that I read this month is Shirley Jackson's We Have Always Lived in the Castle. Now, on our channel, we actually already did a review of this. Did it last year, so I think that covered most of the material that we have to talk about this. But I really enjoyed it. This has probably been my favorite so far. I mean, obviously, since this is a newer book. This came out in the 1960s, so the language is a little more contemporaneous than Mr. Walpole's book. But it's sort of creepy in a different way. I mean, I don't think that Shirley Jackson's writing is perfect, but there are a lot of things I like about it. She's obviously a very practiced author, and so I enjoyed reading that. Also read some of her short stories during the month. The book that I'm reading right now, which sort of is something that came out not too long after The Castle of Otranto, but about 3 decades, is Matthew Lewis's The Monk. Now, this was actually recommended to me online in a thread about horror fiction, and I actually didn't realize, I had actually never heard of it before, because I'm not a super big Gothic fiction or horror fiction aficionado. I do read it occasionally, usually around October, and so I was actually surprised to hear that this came out in, I think, 1796. So this is sort of the next big Gothic hit after Horace Walpole's book, and it's actually quite a bit longer, so tipping 400 pages in this edition with a preface by Stephen King, which I haven't read yet because I no longer read introductions to books before reading the books because I've just fallen for spoilers too many times. So that'll have to wait. I'll probably finish this today or tomorrow. I'm about 300 pages in, and I would definitely recommend this book. Sort of a meandering plot, but still pretty good. Especially when you consider the age that the author was when he wrote it and the time period that it was written in, so I would definitely recommend checking this out. Next book that I'm going to read, well, it's sort of a short story, is The Turn of the Screw by Henry James. Now, I ordered this edition, and it's a novella, and it said it comes with other short fiction, which I guess Washington Square is lumped in as short fiction here, which Washington Square, I guess, could be called a novella, but it's a long novella. Definitely would recommend that book. The Turn of the Screw I've actually never read before, so I'm going to read that after I finish The Monk. Probably will technically read it after Halloween, but that's fine. And then, of course, a fun thing to revisit every year, and you don't have to read all of them, but of course is Poe's short stories. I'm not sure what my favorite would be. What's your favorite Poe short story?
That's a good question. I guess I like the Mask of the Red Death.
Yeah, The Mask of the Red Death is good. I probably would just go with Amontillado, which is, of course, the main one, just because I think it's creepy. I like Mask of the Red Death, but it's sort of a little too supernatural for me. I like it when horror fiction sort of borders reality, as it does in the case of the Revenge Story versus The Mask of the Red Death. But I was thinking of rereading a few of them or going over them, but we'll see. So would definitely recommend revisiting our friend Poe. So I think that's pretty much it for me for this month because we're at the end of the month now. Anyways, we have a few more days left to read some horror stories before the end of the month, and we proceed on to Thanksgiving literature. I'm not sure, or I guess November is Write Your Novel month, so maybe you guys can all do that. I'll see you guys around.